This book explores practical techniques for accelerated learning and memory improvement, drawing from scientific research on how the brain processes and retains information. The author combines personal experience with evidence-based methods to help readers develop more effective learning strategies. Chapter 1, starting with the simplest, the foundation of effective learning lies in simplicity. The author emphasizes that the best approach to learning or teaching any subject is to use the simplest method possible. True learning goes beyond mere memorization of facts or formulas. When you memorize a mathematical formula without understanding its meaning or the processes that lead to its result, you have not truly learned, and the information will soon be forgotten. What distinguishes genius from average ability? The author argues that the primary difference is the capacity to learn effectively. This begins with grasping a simple central idea and then building deeper understanding from that foundation. Major discoveries throughout history have typically emerged from sustained effort in learning and repeatedly practicing investigative steps that were fundamentally simple in nature. This represents what researchers call a growth mindset, where ability develops through effort and work rather than being fixed or predetermined. The author introduces the learning pyramid concept, developed by psychiatrist William Glasser. This framework quantifies how much information people retain through different teaching methods. Reading alone results in only 10% retention. Oral presentation increases retention to 20%, while visual presentation achieves 30%. Combining oral and visual methods simultaneously reaches 50% retention. Interactive discussion raises retention to 70%. Hands-on practice achieves 80% retention, while teaching others reaches 95% retention. Understanding these different levels of information processing helps learners choose the most effective methods for their goals. Chapter 2, Producing More with Less Effort. The concept of accelerated learning follows the 80-20 principle, meaning that 80% of learning can be achieved with only 20% of effort. This approach allows learners to acquire substantial knowledge about any subject while using minimal energy and time. This theory was developed by Tim Ferriss, who became known for maximizing productivity with minimal effort. Another valuable technique is just-in-time learning. This method emphasizes avoiding anxiety and rushing through learning stages. The key principle requires completely mastering each step before proceeding to the next one. This approach maintains the simplicity that facilitates effective learning while ensuring solid foundational understanding. The author explains that human thinking operates in two distinct modes, focused and diffuse. Focused thinking involves concentrated attention on the specific learning object. During focused thinking, the brain uses existing neural patterns that facilitate the learning process. Diffuse thinking represents a newer pattern that the brain has not yet established. This mode occurs primarily during sleep and rest periods. These two thinking modes operate separately and serve different functions in the learning process. Chapter 3. Understanding how the brain functions. When the brain processes new information, neuromodulators work on neurons as they connect through synapses. These connections form complex networks resembling webs, involving billions of neurons that process information throughout the brain. Previous beliefs suggested that losing neurons permanently weakened mental capacity. However, research has shown this to be incorrect, as neurons regenerate and synapses continuously form new connections. Several key neuromodulators regulate brain function and can be enhanced during learning processes. Dopamine influences motivation levels and drives the desire to continue learning. Acetylcholine enhances focused concentration, allowing sustained attention on learning materials. Serotonin produces feelings of well-being that support positive learning experiences. The amygdala regulates memory formation, cognitive processing, and emotional responses during learning. Chapter 4. Memorizing. Memory represents one of the most distinctive capabilities that separates humans from other living beings. Memory provides the foundation for understanding our purposes and goals in life. The author describes 4 distinct types of memory that support different aspects of learning. Visual memory creates associations between images and concepts being learned. Images serve as information carriers, and these visual associations facilitate easier recall of learned material. Spatial memory stores information related to locations and navigation, which explains why people can travel familiar routes without forgetting the way. Working memory operates for short durations and relates to immediate activities and tasks. Long-term memory provides permanent storage for information that becomes truly retained knowledge. Two particularly effective memory techniques deserve special attention. Spaced repetition involves reviewing material at reasonable time intervals rather than attempting to study the same content repeatedly in a single session. This technique specifically targets the development of long-term memory for any learning objective. The memory palace technique involves associating familiar places and objects with information that needs to be remembered. Learners create mental routes through these familiar locations, making associations that support memory retrieval. Chapter 5. Fragmenting and memorizing knowledge. Most rapid learning techniques require absorbing knowledge in manageable stages rather than attempting to learn everything simultaneously. The fragmentation technique provides a practical approach for handling complex material, such as preparing for examinations covering multiple subjects. An effective schedule might involve studying 2 subjects for 40 minutes each day, spending 30 minutes reading or watching instructional videos, and 10 minutes taking notes. The following day, the same process applies to 2 different subjects, while also reviewing notes from the previous day. Understanding each learning stage thoroughly creates what researchers term memory trails. This process begins by examining the content that can be broken into fragments. Next, learners develop understanding of the basic underlying concepts. Finally, this foundation enables comprehension of the complete context being taught. Each stage builds upon the previous one, creating stronger overall understanding. Chapter 6. Fragmenting and accelerating knowledge. The Feynman Technique, developed by physicist Richard Feynman, provides a 4-step process for rapidly acquiring knowledge about any subject. Using the example of studying dictatorship in Brazil, the first step involves taking a blank sheet of paper and writing the topic at the top. Then create a comprehensive list of everything currently known about the subject, writing down all information that comes to mind in simple, clear language. Step 2 transforms the learner into a teacher. This involves simulating the experience of teaching the listed content to another person, explaining concepts clearly and thoroughly. Step 3 reveals knowledge gaps called blind spots. During the teaching simulation, areas become apparent where understanding seems adequate but actually lacks sufficient depth for clear explanation. Step 4 returns to the beginning, requiring review of all material, additional study of weak areas, and incorporation of necessary content into the original list. Chapter 7. Caring for the body and mind. After presenting various memorization and rapid learning techniques, the author addresses behavioral aspects and habits that support effective learning. Maintaining physical and mental health significantly enhances both learning capacity and retention of acquired knowledge. These health factors optimize the effectiveness of all previously described techniques. Brain function operates according to circadian rhythms that correspond to 24-hour cycles. Sleep plays a crucial role in learning processes, as the body requires rest periods for the brain to consolidate information and clear metabolic waste. Respecting natural biological cycles supports optimal brain function. Hydration maintains essential brain function, as proper water levels are necessary for optimal cognitive performance. Foods containing omega-3 fatty acids help regulate cortisol, a hormone released during stressful situations. Excessive cortisol levels harm overall health and learning capacity. Regular physical exercise combined with adequate hydration helps regulate stress hormones while keeping the brain active, alert, and functioning at peak performance. These habits create conditions for a healthy body, optimal brain function, accelerated learning, and robust memory. Chapter 8. Rediscovering the secret of a brilliant mind. The author dedicates significant attention to dispelling common myths about intelligence and learning that have persisted throughout human history. These misconceptions involve false connections between intelligence levels and learning capacity, natural talent and learning ability, genius and learning potential, effort and learning success, brain hemisphere dominance and learning preferences, and genetic factors and learning capability. Excessive effort does not guarantee successful memorization and learning. Using the 80-20 method combined with spaced repetition often produces superior results compared to intensive cramming approaches. The author challenges several persistent myths, explaining that listening to classical music while studying does not enhance memorization. Different intelligence levels do not directly correlate with greater or lesser learning ability. Failure should be understood as an experimental learning process and viewed as positive rather than negative. Using one brain hemisphere more frequently than the other does not create advantages for learning certain subjects while creating disadvantages for others, since effective learning utilizes both hemispheres. Chapter 9. Reading with purpose and intent. Since much learning occurs through reading, developing efficient reading skills significantly accelerates the learning process. Efficient reading techniques allow much faster reading speeds without compromising content retention. The first technique involves eliminating or reducing subvocalization, which is the internal voice that sounds in the mind while reading. Contrary to common belief, this internal voice does not improve retention of information. Using a text marker or finger to guide visual tracking helps maintain focus when changing lines and supports faster reading speeds. Significant improvement occurs when readers learn to group words together, allowing complete comprehension of phrases in single glances without losing contextual understanding. Purposeful reading without distractions, combined with predicting upcoming content, stimulates faster reading speeds. Additional reading optimization techniques include previewing the table of contents to capture the essence of the book before detailed reading. Reading the beginning of each chapter quickly provides overall content structure that improves retention of the complete work. When reviewing previously read books, starting from the end and working backward exercises memory through this reversal process. Chapter 10. Step-by-step practice and implementation. This book serves as a practical guide for accelerating learning and improving memory through immediately applicable techniques. The simple and direct presentation reflects the fundamental simplicity of the techniques themselves. These methods can be implemented immediately for any learning process, whether in professional work, academic study, leisure activities, sports, or any human endeavor. Incorporating these techniques into personal learning approaches requires deliberate practice with genuine commitment. Purposeful practice develops better recognition of individual skills and subskills in each new learning situation. This awareness enables learners to identify personal strengths and areas needing improvement. When approaching new learning challenges, focus initially on the easiest aspects rather than confronting the most difficult elements first. After building confidence with simpler components, sustained practice on challenging areas eventually breaks through barriers to understanding. Learning should begin with simple logic and pursue mastery step by step, maintaining determination and clear purpose throughout the process. The author's personal motivation began in adolescence when the desire to be perceived as intelligent by a classmate inspired increased study effort, better grades, and expanded knowledge. This experience sparked lifelong interest in understanding brain function and discovering methods for learning more effectively and efficiently. Learning represents a continuous process where practice develops expertise and acquired knowledge creates opportunities to teach others, contributing to broader social benefit.